Oops, hold on.
Oh, we're roosting tonight. It's the hen.
Gotta do it in the right order. My fingers skipped over the button. Boom, boom. All right, there. So professional. I got the screens. I'ma use them. What's up, my friends? How you doing? Time for a random middle of the afternoon live stream to talk about old school Magic lore, because I sat down to start working on a new lore video for Fantasy Geographic, and I don't really feel like working on the video right now, but I do feel like talking about some of the old school like lore and flavor of Magic based on like the story that I've chosen is awesome because it ties into the old. Oh, hold on. You know what? Never mind. Before I get sidetracked, first things first, let me share the link in the Discord for the live stream, and then we'll do our hellos before I dive in and run off with what I'm here to say. All right. Oh, I didn't get as much sleep as I'd like. I'm feeling a little like off, a little bit off, a little uncomfortable. But that's it, just a minor bit. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. All right, there we go. That's good. All right, what up, Picard, Sweets, Tony, Jess, Reverence, Brent, who else we got in here? Jeff Beasley, Nick Goddard, Millmaster, Mike F. What's up? What's up, everybody? And Assorted Lurkers, how you doing? How you guys doing today? Carly has headed out. She is out picking up some groceries and stuff, and I was feeling a little uncomfortable, a little lonely as well, in all honesty. And I was like, you know what? I think it'd be cool to come and talk about some old school Magic lore and the way things work like nowadays versus the way they work back then. Because this was a pleasant reminder of how much more dark and real the old concept for planeswalkers and summoning and stuff was comparatively. What up, Skip? So it's delineated into what I call like adult style planeswalkers and children's, you don't have to worry about any morality issues at all style planeswalkers. And the new era planeswalkers have been sanitized for your moral protection, which makes for absolute boredom. And if you don't know what I mean by that, the idea goes like this, right? Like back in the original days, and now even, when you play Magic, you're a planeswalker. Now, this concept has been muddied somewhat by planeswalker cards, right? What up, Adam? So you have a situation where originally we didn't have planeswalker cards at all. And at the very beginning, planeswalkers weren't like characters that we were familiar with. Like Urza, yes, he became the most famous planeswalker who did the most and had the most sweeping effect. And it was this big, long storyline. And you can argue for or against that. I like the Urza storyline. I enjoyed all that. But at the same time, they did drag it on so long that when it was going along with the sets, it did start to feel somewhat stale. So there is the possible like nostalgia goggles, removing any negative aspects and maintaining the more positive aspects for me. And I do admit that. But overall, there has been a progressive lessening of stakes overall. Oh, Jess, you got to take your cat to the vet. Well, I hope that your cat's okay, buddy. I hope your cat will be all right, bro. Brent, waiting in the area you're in is for loading and unloading only, not watching streams. Not watching streams. You're violating docking procedures. So, at the beginning of Magic, very, very beginning, back in the 90s, we were planeswalkers. We had our spells and we were battling over. We were engaged in some contest of wills For what reason? Who knows? Is it a battle over like power? Are we battling over a location? Am I a good guy? Am I a bad guy? You can be any of it, right? Like it's all over the place in terms of like morality and character and stuff like that. John Pierre, do I think that the problems the game has today are a result of poor story direction? No. I have to be 100% honest. I am a huge lore and flavor buff, but the majority of Magic players don't rank lore and flavor as being terribly important to them. The most important thing to them is the gameplay. So most of the problems at Wizards of the Coast stem from laziness, cheapness, just trying to get as much money as they can while doing as little work to actually maintain the game. The sad truth is that the lore and everything else, it really only appeals to a certain subsection of Magic players. And there might actually be a contingent of Magic players that are larger than the lore lovers who actually wouldn't care what flavor the game was. They wouldn't care if this was a baseball simulation game. They wouldn't care if it was like anything. Anime people fighting, like none of it. It's purely about the gameplay. Magic gameplay is incredibly strong and compelling, right? It's a lot of fun. There's a reason that Magic has stood the test of time. So, as tragic as it is for somebody who's a hardcore lore junkie like me to admit, it's Magic lore isn't important. It isn't to the game succeeding. It is an extra way to augment the game, and I do believe they are genuinely leaving money on the table. Like in terms of if they were to spend the amount of effort that it would take to properly develop worlds and characters, they could connect people more strongly with it and they could spring it out into more things. But they just won't do that, right? Like the Planeswalkers feel like they have less and less to them as time progresses. Kaido is virtually empty as a Planeswalker, right? Like Teo, like none of the Planeswalkers they make anymore have substance. They don't mean anything. They're tools to serve a purpose. Like Nico Eris wasn't created to be a compelling Planeswalker. He was created as a tool of representation, right? Now, they don't make many Planeswalkers specifically in that regard, but that shows the underlying mentality they have when it comes to the storyline stuff. And I believe that it would augment the game, and I believe they would make more money if they properly focused on lore. I think that it would add to their bottom line, and it would augment the game and help for the overall game's health. But I can't pretend that it's essential, integral, or it's what's leading to the problems that we're having with the game. You know? Millmaster, do I have a list of the duelist scries and inquests I need? I don't, but I really should catalog that. Let me make a note. To do that. There's a lot of awesome stuff in those magazines, and like I'm having a hard time right now with Magic in that like all that we talk about over on the Historian, it's always bad news because that's all that's happening right now, and I need more magical joy to help balance it out because my cup no longer runneth over. You know what I mean in terms of magical joy. So I'm like doing what like I'm going out and playing. I'm trying to work on my cube and everything. I'm trying to maintain my passion balance. Like I don't want to skew too heavy towards the negative, but I feel like I'm getting there. I feel like I'm skewing that way. So old school lore, original era stuff, trying to like find my way back, the old magazines, all of it. I think that's important. Templar, who do I think the next big bad will be? I mean, it's just going to be, like, it's either going to be nothing and nobody, like we got on Ikoria, where there wasn't really a villain and they didn't even tell us who was in the Ozolith, or it's just going to be Bolas or the Eldrazi are back. They don't develop new villains. And the thing is, they have the capability to do so. Like, if you take a look at what they did with Amonkhet, for example, Amonkhet was an astoundingly awesome concept, for real. Amonkhet was such an amazing concept that you could have established a brand new villain just from what was done there, and they would seem truly evil, impressive, and somebody you would definitely have a hard time thwarting. Like, I'll break it down in a second. Jamestown says, I saw Rudy open a box of sorcery, and Wizards should be jealous of the card quality and the old feel of the cards. They feel amazing. They look amazing. I opened a box as well. If you haven't seen my box opening, they sponsored one for me and sent me out a box of Alpha. I opened it, the starter decks, all of it. The game looks beautiful. No idea if the game's good. Me and Carly had fun playing it. As far as lore, you thought the next Netflix show would help the lore problem? Well, the Netflix show seems to be non-existent, right? Like, it might have disappeared when Netflix got rid of their animation studio and it got shuffled around to new producers. But at the end of the day, it's like the same way that Wizards novels didn't do jack, and we ended up with like War of the Spark trash. It doesn't matter if they're making a Netflix show if all the decisions they're making are terrible. Do you know what I mean? Like, and the thing about the Netflix show is it was going to be brand new characters that would like maybe run into Jace or Chandra there. So we're dealing with a situation where if Wizards of the Coast are the ones making the characters, they have like they don't make characters anymore. So it's just going to be empty, stilted nothingness, right? Like just here you go, whatever it is they're trying to emulate now. I don't know if they've given up on trying to emulate Avengers and stuff because Marvel has finally just went but for the longest time, that's what they were doing, right? Yent, you're getting your joy from sorcery? Nice, buddy. What up, Skeeter? What up, Venomous? Y'all let you rephrase you were hoping. Fair enough. I had hopes for it too. I had hopes that maybe some other creatives would come in because when Wizards of the Coast just steps the fuck back and lets other people do their work, like for example, Sanderson he created Davriel. He wrote a story with Davriel that was genuinely enjoyable and linked into a Plains world soul because they let a real author tell a real story without any agenda shoved into it, without cheaping out and getting the crappiest authors they could, without changing the story later on to match other nonsense that makes no sense, like they did with the Brothers' War crap, where they're like, yo, you're here for the Brothers' War? Well, what if we hung out with Urza's adulterous, awful wife, and we pretended like she was a paragon of virtue? And then also she was the first one to learn magic. Isn't that exciting? Even though that's absolutely has nothing to do with this story, we're literally going to dedicate 40% of the story to it. They are out of their minds with this like shareholder marketing nonsense crap that they're doing. So at the beginning, there was none of that. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing. It was like, oh yeah, Towns. Actually, technically, I have 2 sorcery videos. There is the one on the pre-cons and everything that I did on this channel, and then on the Historian, there's the full-on box opening video. It's like sorcery is going to crush MTG or whatever it was that I called it, something along those lines. Because yeah, it's quality. So we have this new era of sanitized planeswalkers that have virtually no personality, and we see ridiculous nonsense like them going, Liliana used to be interesting and compelling because she was evil and selfish, and that drove what she did. She made pacts with demons for her own youth and sacrificed tons of people's lives. But then Wizards just went, no, Liliana's a good lady. She's a good lady because every lady is good and Liliana's just a good girl. And it's like, make me believe it. Write it into the story. Actually earn the transformation. And they're like, no, this is just what she is. And that's just how it works. It doesn't resonate. Nobody can connect with it because it's just nonsense. It's not, they don't write real characters anymore. And the way that planeswalking works now is when you summon up a creature, you're not summoning up that creature. You're magically creating a construct. It's not actually a living being. It's not real. It's made of pure magic. So it's just nothing, right? Whereas in the original days of magic, let's say, here's how the flavor worked. Let's say you wanted a Shivan dragon. You had to travel to Dominaria. You had to travel to Shiv. You had to find a nice, healthy Shivan dragon and compel it to serve you by binding it with magics. And then you mark it as your own. And then you depart that world, leaving the dragon to reside in Shiv, living its normal life. Just every day doing its thing. Until one day, you're on another plane, just minding your own business. Another planeswalker shows up, and he ain't friendly, and it's time to throw down. And that's when you start to draw on your magical reserves, where you've connected yourself to all these different parts of the multiverse. Whoa, drawing all that magic into you. And then you pull through the blind eternities, this Shivan dragon, to your location, bound to your will, ready to battle. And you can feed your mana into it to cause its fire to bam, immolate things at massive power levels, right? But, oh no, yo, this is a death mage. And he knows crazy death magic. And he literally pours the pure essence of terror, the pure essence of heart-stopping fear into that Shivan dragon. And it plummets from the air. It's gone. That Shivan dragon is dead. You don't have it anymore. You can't summon it again. You can't reconstruct it unless you've made a pact with divinity or something and have some sort of resurrection magic or animate the... Oh no! The death mage is just animated! My Shivan! Right? And so now the corpse of this being that you went out and found yourself has been turned against you, while this necromage is smirking at you as somehow, inexplicably, the Shivan dragon, which is dead, is now winging its way towards you, right? You actually escape from this battle, right? You're just like, yo, I'm bailing. I'm fleeing from this plane. Forget it. I'm outmatched. So you leave. You travel through the blind eternities. Now you've got to go back to Shiv and find another Shivan dragon. How long do they take to mature? How many are there? Limited resources. Oh, the Black Lotus. No, it's an actual special mana-steeped flower you have to find out there. It's not just a construct you can just create whenever you want. Like, it takes everything special away from it by going, there's no moral quandary. Like, bro, if you go and read some of the old stories, like, there are beings, like, some are humans, like Urg Raiders and stuff, that are summoned through the blind eternities. And some of these groups, some planeswalkers are, like, compel them into battle, magically bound. But some planeswalkers actually reward their followers. They're like, yo, when you show up in our summon for battle, here's a bag of gold to fight for me. You are paid for your work, right? So there's these different concepts. And then you have a two-headed giant, right? His arm gets blown off in a magical battle. Well, guess what? The planeswalker who summoned him up, he lost that battle. He fled the plane. And when the planeswalker leaves the plane, all the beings that he summoned up, no way home. Never going home. Just like that My Chemical Romance song. Never going home, never going home. You know? Baron Senger ended up on Olgrotha because a planeswalker summoned him there. And there are beings, like, he dedicated his life to trying to figure out how to escape the plane. At the same time, the vampires of his lineage spread throughout the multiverse as they were found by planeswalkers and summoned up into different locales. And so, like, the story that I am working on for Fantasy Geographic, the lore revolves around an academic who once upon a time lived in a metropolis. He was a highly respected academic who was basically a master of information about animals, right? So what happens is a planeswalker seeks him out, drags him into his battle, because he's looking to exploit the creatures that he has to learn more about them. This guy wanted nothing to do with it, but because he spent his life studying or whatever, he just gets plucked up and he ends up living in a bog on a completely different world, just trying to help the tribal people live in there. And when planeswalkers show up, he casts this defiance in their teeth. Get out of here. I know what you are. I know you're kind. You're not fooling me. You're not a merchant here to try and trade with me. I understand you are from another world. I know what you're trying to do. I'm not interested in it, right? But at least one planeswalker is actually going to cajole him into taking them out to take a look at these different beasts. And he explains all of the biology of them and the natural ecosystem. And then the planeswalker comes out and binds, like, it's super compelling. It's super compelling. The old flavor is way, way more compelling. Waffle, are we on the other side of the 5 years the CEO gave Wizards to double? Yep, we're on the other side of it. They doubled it. I guess you didn't hear. There was already a new mandate, which is the equivalent. Instead of doubling it in 5 years, you have to raise it by 50% in 3 years. So that's what spawned Magic 30. That's what spawned laying off 15% of the you know what? Never mind. I don't want to talk about that. I'm not interested in it. I'm here to talk about lore and magic and all that. I specifically said I'm trying to lift my tanks back up on magical enjoyment. So I'm not going to worry about that stuff right now. I'm not going to worry about that. He's not a simple tailor on DS9. I like that reference. I like that. How about regular people as magic cards sucked into different worlds? I mean, regular people, we already had that. We had Argivian archaeologists, right? I think that taking fragile beings that have no combat abilities and summoning them up in the midst of combat and then there's all kinds of crazy layers to it. It's nutty. It's nutty. Waffle, it's all good, man. I know you weren't trying to whatever. That's why. It's all good. It's all good. You didn't do anything wrong, man. You're just trying to be part of the conversation. I'm just trying to take more of an active hand in recognizing when I'm walking down a road I don't want to be and stopping my feet from moving. I ain't blaming the person who might have nudged me down the road because I'm the one walking it, right? So, and anybody who's got problems with magic, I understand. I got a ton of problems with it. I get sad about it. And I'm trying to find more joy right now. I'm trying to be happy. I'm trying to find some happiness, you know? And I will admit that coming here and talking to you guys was the right choice because I was feeling lonely and sad before I started the stream. I know you're not supposed to say that kind of stuff on the internet, especially when you're like the entertainer person, but I'm not interested in being fake. Joy Bacon and Barks. Yeah, Teferi, I like the way you talk, buddy. I've had bacon today. I've had Barks, so. Did I like the first Magic novel, Arena? Fuck yeah, man. Garth from House Orteal, the turquoise house, the way that he turned the fucking, he turned Buddy's spell around. Yo, if you don't know, for anybody who hasn't already figured it out, I have a channel dedicated to Magic the Gathering lore that has hours and hours and hours of lore videos over there talking about all the different Magic lore. And all it is pure magical lore goodness. Although, disclaimer, it's pretty obvious I have no enthusiasm for the new Brothers War storyline. You can tell it when you listen to those videos. And the same goes for like the Aftermath and whatever. I don't think those are terribly good lore videos. You can watch them if you want, but to me, it's the old school lore and all that that's worth watching. Those I made to cover the new lore because people wanted it, but my heart was not even remotely in it. You know what I mean? I was just doing it as a courtesy, removing a bunch of the dumb crap that Wizards has shoved into it that wasn't in there, and then just went, here you go. But I don't stand behind it as like solid, enjoyable lore videos the same way I do for like the Brothers War videos and stuff that we've done. Those are genuinely good. The other ones are adequate. Mediocre even, perhaps. VT, you're having so much fun with Lord of the Rings, it's making you forget how much you dislike Wizards? Nice. Enjoy that, buddy. Lean into it. Life is short. Don't squash your own joy. Skip, you can't spend money on Magic anymore because Wizards ruined it for you. Still love the game, but haven't spent any money since Magic 30. I can't blame you. Can't blame you for it. What up, Murphy? Do I still have a sack of packs? The sack has been retired, but dead TCG packs totally still flow. We did a dead TCG Plinko stream recently. That was the most recent time we cracked some of them rando packs. But yeah, the old school lore, the old way of doing it is more compelling. There's more stakes. It feels more real. The resources are finite. And like it adds a real moral question. What up, Packhead? How you doing? That's not the moral question. The moral question is it all right to force other beings to fight on your side if your side is the right side? Like if you're on the side of justice and virtue, and you're fighting against evil necromancers, is it okay to force sentient beings to fight and die against their will to stop a greater evil? And the question is, how much can you prove your moral justification? And how much does that matter in the grander scale of the multiverse as well? How do you weigh the value of one particular plane in the grand, like, web of the multiverse? There's so much meat to it. And when you change it into planeswalkers summon up constructs, and nobody's a bad guy except for the bad guy who's a really cartoonishly bad guy that you can't identify with the same way you could identify with Thanos, for example, and go, what you're doing is awful and you need to be stopped. But like, you're doing it because you're broken and you're flawed, not because you're evil. You literally think you're doing good. Villains who think they're doing good are incredibly compelling. Thanos was incredibly compelling. For real, for real. Infinity War was fantastic. And if they had stuck with Thanos' original reason for wanting to wipe everybody out, that he wanted to bang death, nobody's going to connect with that. It's not going to resonate the same way. Like, small changes make big differences, and implications add flesh to the skeleton. And all we get now are skeletons with hollow bones. Do you know what I mean? They got no bone density. Magic lore has osteoporosis. Randomness, are there any particular old magic novels I suggest you read? It depends on what you want. If you want a storyline following a planeswalker protagonist, then you want like the Brothers' War kind of storyline, you know, that kind of deal. If you want to go a step back before that and just see worlds being affected by planeswalkers, but the planeswalkers aren't the focal point of the story, they affect the focal point of the story, then the story of Gull and Greensleeves, which goes across a number of books, is absolutely fascinating. They're a brother and sister duo who absolutely hate planeswalkers for what happened to their home world. And they end up joining up with a ragtag band of essentially abandoned outcasts that have also had their lives ruined by planeswalkers, being summoned to different planes and just abandoned. And yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. What up, Between the Lines? What up, Loco? Magic Laura's on life support. I feel like you're being generous, bro. I feel like you're being generous. It's all awful. It's all awful. They hire writers who can't write, who don't care about the story and are just hitting a word count. And then literally nobody reads it afterwards. Wizards of the Coast pays somebody, and then they turn it in, and nobody reads it. Nobody reads it before they give it to us. They literally don't read it. Like, Akiri was called Akira. What? Akira, you made this character. This isn't even the first set she's appeared in. Like, this is a returning character. You can't even get the name right. Ren gets dropped by Chandra. She falls out of the air, lands on the ground. Then, after she's landed on the ground and is laying there, somehow, somebody catches her midair 2 sentences later. And you're just like, there's no way anybody reading this would not catch that. It's so blatant. It's so blatant. So you have empty stories that aren't written even to be read, it feels like. And you have crazy, insane nonsense where Vorinclex just gets his... Like, Vorinclex gets his head lopped off by a nobody we've never heard of before. But they spend the extra story time to tell us that this nobody is a lady who can drink every man under the table. And it's just like... That was Vorinclex. That was a big character. That was a big character. So yeah, that's just the state, right? Like, it's absurdity. It's absurdity. The story used to be something they cared about. Not anymore. Not anymore. So, like, yeah, whatever, man. They're just hiring whoever will do whatever. It's not about a compelling story. It's not about it making any sense even. It's literally just get words in front of the people so we can say check mark, we got a story. Oh, it's really annoying. That's it, Mailmaster. Those are your two options for defining your characters. There's no... I can't connect with anybody anymore because nothing's ever happening. You can't feel anybody's emotions because nothing is going on. Nothing is happening. Nothing matters, but they're trying to make you think everything matters. The whole universe is exploding and everything's in danger. Is it though? Literally nothing's going to change from this. They did the Phyrexian invasion and they wanted it to be huge. So they're like, yo, the Weatherlight's been converted. All this stuff's been converted. Phyrexia is everywhere. Watch them. They're unstoppable. They can't even be stopped. They're completely unstoppable. So how do they get stopped? Oh, the Wi-Fi router stopped working. Come again? Yeah, no, Phyrexians work like Wi-Fi, bro. The Wi-Fi router's not working. What? They got a problem with their modem? Yeah, no, like the modem, bro. And it's like, come again? Yeah, no. Elish Norn put like all the Phyrexians have like Wi-Fi modem antenna in them, and Norn uses it to control them. And it's like, oh, so then why didn't she stop all the Phyrexians who rebelled against her with that power? Oh, well, like, shut up. Yeah, you should shut up. Remember when all the Planeswalker turned on her? Like, remember when a bunch of the Phyrexians turned on her and started pulling off her legs? That whole she has absolute control over them thing. Why is this all in the same story chunk? Why do we have story chunks where it's like, yo, guess what? There's been angels on Capenna all along. They've just been waiting for the right moment. It's not yet time. Let Phyrexia destroy everything. It's so baffling. Oh, anyways, Carly's back, so I'm gonna be heading off. This was something fun to do while I was waiting for her to come back. Thanks for coming and hanging out. We'll get together tonight for the regularly scheduled stream. See you then.